All right, well, first off, thanks for coming out today, and this will kind of be the end of the season wrap-up. I think the fact that we're having this here today, is a little bit of a disappointment. The goal to start the season is we're in Detroit right now getting ready to play a game, so that's our goal every year, is that we are in Detroit playing for the MAC championship, which is going to happen tonight, and certainly as a program, we're disappointed we're not there. At the same time, now that the season's been over for a week and we've had time to reflect, I think there were a lot of positives from this year. Obviously, being +3 on the wins was a jump that I felt. Obviously, we needed to make a jump. How big that jump was going to be, I don't know, but we were +3 for the year, which is a positive. The offense went from 12th in the conference to 6th in the conference, which is a substantial one-year jump. And in doing so, we almost doubled our rushing production from a year ago. The defense had a jump from 12th in the conference to 8th in the conference overall, which is, again, another significant jump that we had to make. And I think we really improved special teams-wise. Our punt unit was #1 pretty much the whole year. Obviously, having Brian Schmeidebusch helped a great deal in that regard. Our kickoff return unit was 3rd in the conference. And our overall special teams ranking, and the way I come up with that is, you take your punt return, your kickoff, and your kickoff return. We were one of the top 4 special teams units all year. And so there was a lot of improvement made on I think both sides of the ball and special teams, and that contributed to winning 3 more games. Really believe we have a very bright future. We have, if you include the kicker, punter, and long snapper, we have 21 starters returning. So this year we were the youngest team in the MAC by far. We had 34 freshmen and sophomores in our 2 deep. I want to say I think that was 9 or 8 more than the next youngest team. So it was an extremely young group. Defensively, 12 out of our top 14 tacklers returned. And 10 of those 12 are freshmen and sophomores. So I really think we're starting to build a very good group with depth on that side of the football. And offensively, we have 4 starters back. Ben Boychek is the only starter who graduates. But because of the injury situation, you really almost have 5, because between Nick Wharton and Chip Robinson and Kyle Bryant, all 3 of those guys started along with Dominic Fluellen and Jordan Russos. And I think we redshirted some really good players this year on the offensive line that will help us. I think Christian Piazza and Alex Huddle and Fawn Cooper and Spencer Cairo are all guys that can really help us next year. And getting Darian Delaney back from injury, I think, will even bolster that group. We really have our top 5 tight ends back. They were all freshmen and sophomores, from Alex Baer to Tyler Beck to Kendall Montgomery to Clay Rolfe to Chris Pullman. Those are all guys that are going to be back in a year older and a year better. Our top 3 tailbacks return. It was great to get Anton Samuel to be the freshman of the year in the MAC. We expect him to be better next year. Jordan Hopgood, Jamel Martin, and obviously having Matt Shills back for another year. So, certainly in offense right now, the one hole is wide receiver. But other than that, we should be better at every other position on our team, and I believe with the receivers in our program, those guys need experience. And we also have problems we have to address, things that just aren't going to go away. And to me, clearly, the 3 areas in our program that if we're going to take that next step and become an 8, 9, 10-win team that's in a bowl game playing for a MAC championship, to me, the biggest glaring weakness in our program right now is just our inability to take care of the football. This is 2 years in a row that we've turned the ball over too much. 28 turnovers, 14 interceptions, 14 fumbles. It's hard to win football games doing that, combined with the fact that we did not create turnovers on defense. I think we were -13 for the year, which is a hard obstacle to overcome. Our record in close games is not good. I think if you look at those 1, 2, 3-point games, our record this year was 1 and 2. The Temple win was a big win, but certainly losing by 1 point to Ohio and Wyoming, you flip those games, and we're getting ready for a bowl game right now. And So I think in some ways we're encouraged that we were +3 and lost 2 games by 1 point, that we were close to making a much more substantial jump. Obviously, it's 2 years in a row now that we have, after winning a lot of close games in fourth quarter games in '09, it's 2 years in a row that we have struggled in close games. And then to me, the other big glaring weakness right now that needs to really improve is our rushing defense. It's hard to be a really good defense when you're giving up over 200 yards a game. And I just think if you just look at the conference games, the games that we were able to, I'd say control the run, not necessarily stop it, we won. Certainly, Miami, Temple, and Buffalo, our run defense, those games was solid. In the games in the MAC that we didn't win, you could look at our inability to stop the run, the inability of our defense to get off the field in critical situations, especially in the third and fourth quarter, and we showed that to the team. But I'm encouraged that that's going to get better, and I think when you talk about being a young team, I think a lot of times people say, well, geez, you're talking about inexperience. Inexperience isn't the biggest piece of it. To me, the biggest piece of it is just the relative strength levels of our players. That what we do in a college weight program, the amount of strength that these guys gain from year to year, when you're a freshman in a sophomore-dominated group, you're playing against players that are, for the most part, 2 and 3 years older than the players you have. And, for example, Ohio, I think there was, in their 2 deep, somewhere around 25, 26, 27 players that were in their 4th or 5th year in the program, that they were either redshirt seniors, true seniors, or redshirt juniors. And in games like that, you're going against teams that, are they more experienced? Yes. But I think those extra 2 years in the weight program really becomes a key part of the game, that with so many starters back, if we can make the strength gains that we need to make, to me that has to be the key, that we become a better rushing defense, that we're able to get off the field in the fourth quarter, and we're able to flip some of those games the other way next year. And I think if there's any point of emphasis in our program, it's that we had a young team, and now we've got to make those strength gains and become a more physical football team that can run the ball when it needs to run it. This year we were not good on offense on short yardage. We were probably better on 3rd and 4 and 5 than we were on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. And if you look back to whether it's the Kent game or the Toledo game or even the Western Michigan game, our inability to convert a 3rd and 4th and 1 played a major role in not winning those games. And I think a lot of that has to do with your strength level, the ability to line up and punch people off the football. On defense, it's the ability of your defensive line to create a new line of scrimmage. As a whole, we did not do a very good job of that this year. And that's really where, as these guys are now into their 3rd and 4th year in the program, we need to make those strength gains so that we can run the ball better in critical situations and defend the run better.
Well, there's obviously the difference in win-loss record and everything, but what's the difference in atmosphere, amongst the team, amongst the players you feel from this year compared to last year at this point?
Well, I mean, the one thing that I really feel strongly about is I think our team showed up every game this year and played with a lot of effort and a lot of heart. And I was very, very proud of the effort at Buffalo. That to me was a very telltale game, that, you're 4 and 7, you're not playing for a bowl, you're not playing to get into the MAC championship. And the effort that our guys played with in that game was awesome. And again, did we win? Yes, that was very important. But when you go back and watch the film, we had a bunch of players that were excited about playing football the day after Thanksgiving up in Buffalo with a 4 and 7 record. And to me, that contrasted a lot different than a year ago. I can't tell you at the end of 10 that we had great effort and a bunch of guys excited to play football against Western Michigan at home. And just even if you watched the sideline of that game at Buffalo, our kids were into the game, they were excited. When we made a play, the sideline was involved. So I think right now we have a very engaged football team. I think we have a bunch of players that care about football, that care about the Bowling Green football program, and who love football and want to become better. And that's, when I go to bed at night, I sleep well knowing that we've got a bunch of players in our program that I think are hungry, that love football, that are determined to get better. And we've started the off season already. We're already getting ready for 2012. And I think we have a very good young group that, we expect to make another major step next year.
Coach, a little bit about the Buffalo game, if you would. One thing that kind of got lost, the situation with Adrian Hodges. What was the situation there?
Well, Adrian, was disappointed that he didn't play more in the previous game. And, it was one of those situations that he was a senior, and, Sean Joplin was starting to play more and more, and, Adrian didn't like his role. And we weren't going to change it for one game just because it was the last game of the year, and I think he got frustrated with it and decided that he wasn't going to go with us to Buffalo. So, we weren't going to make any assurance it was going to be different. And, it's unfortunate that a guy goes that long in his career and makes that decision, but, we're going to play the best players. And, Sean had worked himself ahead of Adrian in the depth chart and was playing more, and Adrian was, I think, disappointed with that.
And we also talked a little bit about the running situation there with Anton wasn't able to go, and Jordan was out of the mix already, and Jamel's kind of banged up. But you've got some production from Eric Geiger and John Pettigrew.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a lot to those guys' character. That those are two guys that have been in our program for 3 years and have never played. And the tailback, your top three guys are down, and yet they prepared themselves in a way that after 3 years, the 12th game of the season, they knew what to do, and they performed well, and they helped us win that football game. I mean, John Pettigrew's the first down he made on that third down that he outran everybody to the edge, and then the touchdown that he scored, and certainly Eric Geiger's ability to go in there and run the offense and block the protections. I mean, that's one of those things that you hope in your program, that in your depth, that people care about football enough and love football enough that when their number's called, they're ready. And certainly John Pettigrew and Eric Geiger, when their number was called, they were ready. And they were a major reason. And normally if you go into a game with your fourth tailback, you have reason to be concerned, especially when you're on the road and you're playing, at Buffalo, that the wind was, it was a tough win. So for 2 quarters, you could really do nothing but run the football. And both of those guys played well, and I'm really proud of them. Really proud of them, that those guys, that's a great example to our younger players, that you always need to be ready. You don't know when it's going to happen, but when you get your opportunity, make sure you're ready for it.
You mentioned a number of people that you had redshirted on the offensive line, and then you mentioned strength. Will the added strength and then more people pressing for playing time hopefully make improvements in that? That's what you're looking for?
That has to happen, okay? And just, we've been through this before, but the first year we were here, we inherited a very veteran offensive line. Shane Steffi and Brady Minturn and Scott Albert and Tyler Donahue and Ben Boychuk. And the previous 2 years, they had recruited, I think, 8 or 9 offensive linemen, only one of which is still in the program, and that's was Chip Robinson. The rest of that group either already left or left. And a major reason for our struggles in 10 was we really didn't have an offensive line. This year we had 6 playable guys. Jordan Russos, Dominic Fluellen, Ben Boychuk, Chip Robinson, Dominic Wharton, and Kyle Bryant. And we were very fortunate this year that at no point were we ever down more than one of those guys. I mean, we were one injury on the offensive line away from being almost back to where we were the year before. And unfortunately the year before we didn't stay healthy. This year on the offensive line, we did stay relatively healthy. Kyle Bryant missed a few games, Chip Robinson missed a few games, but Jordan Russos, Dominic Fluellen, Ben Boychuk were there every game. And that really helped us. And so I think we made the jump from a very, very poor offensive line to probably an average, maybe below average offensive line. And now we've got to make the jump to being a good offensive line. And I'm hopeful we can do that because, as I said, you return really 5 guys that started a lot of games. You return Kyle Bryant, Chip Robinson, Dominic Wharton, Dominic Fluellen, and Jordan Russos. okay? Behind them, the last 2 years, when you've looked at our signing class list, how many offensive linemen have you seen? And we've signed 4 or 5 per year the last 2 years, and hopefully that many again this year. But Alex Huddle is going to be a very, very good offensive lineman. Fawn Cooper is going to be a very good offensive lineman. Christian Piazza is going to be a very good offensive lineman. I think Spencer Cairo has a chance to be a very good offensive lineman. Isaiah Byler is going to be a year older, a year better, a year stronger. Darian Delaney, who probably, there was a very good chance Darian was going to start for us or was clearly going to be in our top 6 or 7 this year. He missed the whole year with a knee injury, and then he comes back. So for the first time ever on the offensive line here, we are going to have experience and have depth. And that position will finally be competitive. And that is, I am probably more excited about that than anything else in our program, because that is a position that you can't fix it in a year. That's a developmental position. That's a position that you've got to recruit, redshirt, get them in the weight room, let them develop, let them grow, let them get experience. And the better teams in our league, all the teams playing for bowls, have experienced and very good offensive lines. And I finally feel next year there's no reason that we should not be a good offensive line. So I'm really excited about that group, and that's where the weight room work is critical. Spring football is critical, but we're finally going to have competition there. And I felt on everywhere else in our football program this year we had competition. We had competition at running back, wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker, defensive back. Offensive line here the last 2 years has been a non-competitive position. And we're finally, I think, going to turn that corner this spring and next year, that we're going to have 10, 11, 12 guys battling for playing time.
You mentioned redshirting it on the offensive line. The other position where there were a lot of red shirts this year is at wide receiver. Will you talk a little bit about guys? You mentioned already Sean Joplin stepping forward, and where some of the other guys are going to step forward there?
Well, I think when you look at receiver, we graduate 6 seniors there. But Sean Joplin, as the year went on, really started making some big plays. Certainly in the Ohio game and the Buffalo game, Sean has gotten a lot better. And now he needs to step up and really become a primary and a featured guy for us. Certainly getting Jerron Stokes from Michigan is going to help us. Heath Jackson is a year older, a year better. So there's a group of guys there that now need to take the next step in their development. I mean, a year ago, Eugene Cooper didn't play much for us, and he stepped up and had a very good and a very solid year for us. And we need Heath Jackson and Jerron Stokes and to make that kind of jump. And then we recruited a really good freshman class of receivers. Certainly Hervé Kobe, I think is going to be a very good player. He was very impressive on scout team and probably would have played as a true freshman if he didn't get hurt during camp. Travis Green, DeAndre Dell, Chris Gallen are all guys that we redshirted. And that would be a position that we're looking to add to as well. I think in recruiting, that's a critical position for us. And that is a position that I think a young guy can play, because if you're fast and you can run routes and you can catch the ball, that position doesn't require the same development in the weight room that the offensive line or the defensive line does. So that's certainly a position that we'll have competition, but I think you can add to that competition in recruiting. That's a little harder to do with offensive linemen.
In fact, I think you kind of opened the door to talk a little bit about recruiting needs, and how do you view that coming?
Well, I think this year is the first year that you're not basically trying to replace a whole roster. I think the last 3 years, we've been able to sign the NCAA maximum of 25, and that still hasn't gotten us to the 85. This is the first year that we probably don't need to go to 25. So it allows us to be a little bit more selective in recruiting. In terms of immediate needs, I think wide receiver is a position that is clearly a need with everything that we graduated. I also think that we want to continue to add to our offensive line depth. you know, we believe in recruiting a quarterback a year, just because at that position one guy plays, and you know, you can end up having attrition if a guy doesn't win the job. I think we need to get depth at linebacker, and I think the other places, although we're very young in the secondary, that's another position that we'd like to add depth and competition, because it's a position that a guy can come in and play right away. You know, Daryl Hunter this year as a true freshman really held up well. And then I think defensive line-wise, we've got to start recruiting guys as Chris Jones and Jarris Campbell and Ted Ouellette get older in their careers. We have to have the next generation of defensive linemen coming in here, although that was a position that we played a lot of true freshmen this year. I mean, Zach Colvin played a lot of football as a true freshman. Hunter Maynard played a lot of football as a true freshman. And as redshirt freshmen, Charlie Walker, Brian Thomas, Darius Gilbert, all those guys played a lot of ball. And, you know, I think at times in the fourth quarter against teams that hurt us, the benefit is they played, they now know what it takes, and as they make their gains in the weight room, we should be a lot more firm and a lot more solid there next year as well.
I know the season's only a week over, but spring ball is outside recruiting is next on the agenda. Where's the planning for spring ball standing?
It's already planned. I already know the date we start and when the spring game is, and so we're ready to go. But I mean, really, I think some years you look at, hey, your spring ball is critical. To me, the biggest part of our next season is going to be between now and the start of spring football. You know, I just think that right now we are not as strong and as physical as the better teams in this league. And the only place and way to get that fixed is in the weight room. So these next 3 months for us are huge. That typically, as a player goes through his career, whatever gains that you get in the weight room, you know, usually 3/4 of those gains happen in the first 2 years. And we have so many players that are in the first 2 years of their career that their strength gains should really, really spike. You know, right now, we are not a strong enough football team, and that's just a function of being young. These guys, some of them have never been in an off-season program, and most of them have only been through 1 year of it. And so as these guys go through their first off-season program or their second, you know, the gains that we should have in strength to allow us to become a more physical football team that can run the ball better and stop the run better, that's why these next 3 months are critical to next season. And we started Monday.
I said last Monday.
We started last Monday. We got them together Sunday night. The 2012 season starts now, and we broke down the year. You know, the close games that we lost, in the conference games that we lost, were due to our inability to stop the run at critical times and our inability to run the ball at critical times. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with just an overall lack of strength. And it's nobody's fault. It's a function of being so young. But that you can fix. We have talented football players in this program. We have guys in our program right now that I think, if they work hard, can be some of the best at their position in the conference. And the only way that's going to happen is they put the work in the weight room. And if they all do their part, with 21 starters coming back, there's no reason that we should not make another significant jump next season. So we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it. We think the future is very bright. But there's a lot of work to be done, and that's going on right now as we speak.
So what kind of walk us through training, 3 times a week or what?
Four, and they'll do that through next week until finals. And then we don't require that they lift during finals. Obviously, part of our success and part of our optimism is we haven't lost players. We've had very little attrition. We haven't lost people academically. And so we want our guys to do a great job in finals. When they go home for the break, whether it's Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati or Detroit or Florida, I mean, there's a program that they need to do on their own. And there's 3 or 4 weeks of training that if they're motivated football players and a motivated football team, they're going to make gains. And then the second they get back for the second semester, we're going to jump right back into the strength program. And we chart every lift we do, and we have guys that can lift 1,000 pounds, 11, 12, 1,300 pounds, and that's really where I'm looking for the increase. is that we need to have more guys in our 11, 12, 1,300 pound club. You know, I don't think in those groups where we are where we should be, where a Division I football program should be. And my hope is by the time we start spring football, we've got more of those guys in those groups. And by the time we start camp in August, we've got a lot more guys in those groups. And if we do that, the things we need to improve on should happen. So I don't think there's anything right now more important in our program than our young guys getting stronger and being able to hold up against veteran offensive lines and defensive lines, being able to, you know, when young guys start, it's hard for them to carry it through for 12 games. That's another function of it. Our guys now know what it takes. And so between the increase in strength, and I think part of it is mentally being able to prepare for 12 games, they have such a better idea of how to do that than they did a year ago when they never had to do it before.
I know you can't speak for specifics, but do you expect any early enrollments or junior college kids coming in January?
We'll see. I mean, it's, you know, we'll, if it happens, I promise to let you know when I'm allowed to. There's so much with recruiting, as you know, there's so many rules on what we're allowed to share and not allowed to share that we're always going to be, you know, on the cautious side. So, you know, that could happen. If it does happen, we'll let you know when it's appropriate.
Can you share dates for spring?
You want to go to my office afterwards? I got it on the calendar. So I don't have my phone with me, but if you want to come back, I'll give you when we start and when the spring game's scheduled for.
At this point, is it too early to ask for potential position changes for players, or is that, are we still too close to the end of the year?
No, I mean, we've talked about some. You know, we're, you know, the last game, I don't know if you noticed, we put Boo Boo Gates at safety. That we moved him from the rover position to safety, and he played really, really well. And at times at that position, we did not tackle as well as we needed to, and we're going to take a look at Boo Boo in spring at our whip safety position, basically the free safety. And he made a lot of plays in the Buffalo game. He had the pick. You know, so that's something we're looking very strongly at doing, is at least evaluating him there in the spring and see how he looks, and depending on that, we may leave him there, or we know he's a good rover. But getting him a look at the free safety position. He's just such a dynamic playmaker for us, and if you can get him in that position, I think it gives him the ability to impact games more. So that's one potential move we're looking at. You know, on the offensive line, you know, who plays tackle and who plays guard, I'm not sure. You know, I think we want to play our best five, and if that means that we move a guy from tackle to guard or from guard to center, we'll let that play out in the spring. But those would be the only ones that really stick out. You know, I think, again, we have a lot of guys back, and a lot of the biggest improvement in your college career goes from the first year you played to the second. So we've played so many guys for the first time, you know, we're a little bit reluctant to move their position and start the learning curve all over again, because a lot of them got a lot better at the position they're at.
Going back to the other questions, since I'm not choking myself now, are you looking, you can say, would it be a possibility that you would recruit some junior college kids to fill immediate needs like you have done in the past?
Yes. Yeah, and I think wide receiver is a position that, you know, that could happen. You know, if you look at our roster, we have 10 starters returning on defense. The only starter on defense we graduate is Kevin Moore. And at the defensive end position, we've got Ronnie Goebel, who has at least 2, maybe 3 years of eligibility left. Charlie Walker has 3 years of eligibility left. Brian Thomas has 3 years of eligibility left. Zach Colvin has 3 years of eligibility left. We recruited 2 freshmen last year, Shaq Hall and Brian Baird, that we're very excited about, that we redshirted, that have 4 years of eligibility left. And at every other position, the starter at that position is returning. And so on defense, I really feel good that if we just get the guys that we have better, we are going to continue to improve. You know, and again, we went from 12th to 8th. Can we make the jump from 8th to 4th, 8th to 3rd with the players we have? I think we can, and I think we should. On offense, we've got 8 starters returning. And, you know, Ben is the one guy on the offensive line, and I've already talked about that position. And then at receiver, not only do you lose Kamar and Cooper,